The first step towards proving herself. The sun was just beginning to rise over the bustling city of Charlotte, North Carolina. Glass skyscrapers caught the first rays of morning light, casting long, golden reflections onto the streets below. Among them stood the headquarters of Apex Dynamics, a globally recognized leader in technological innovation. The building, a marvel of sleek modern architecture, boasted its dominance in the industry with its sharp edges and towering presence. Inside, the day had already begun. The hum of office chatter, the gentle tapping of keyboards, and the occasional ring of phones set the tone for another busy workday. For 24-year-old Danielle "Danny" Lawson, today marked the beginning of something much bigger than a job. It was her chance to carve out her identity, to stand on her own without the shadow of her last name. Danny was the daughter of Ethan Lawson, the enigmatic and highly respected CEO of Apex Dynamics. Known for his charismatic leadership and unyielding dedication to his employees, Ethan had built the company from the ground up, earning his place as one of the most influential figures in the corporate world. Despite her lineage, Danny had always insisted on earning her place. She was determined to prove that she was more than just her father's daughter. Months of careful planning had led to this moment. Danny had convinced her father to let her join Apex as a regular employee, under an assumed name, and without revealing her connection to the CEO. With much reluctance, Ethan had agreed, assigning her a junior role in the marketing department. Her supervisor, Marcus Green, a seasoned manager with a reputation for his aggressive and cutthroat approach. Danny adjusted her blazer as she stood before the towering glass doors of the building. She had carefully chosen her outfit, professional but not overly flashy. Her coiled curls framed her face, and her deep brown skin glowed with confidence. Yet, as she stepped inside, a wave of nerves coursed through her. "This is it," she whispered to herself, gripping her portfolio tightly. The elevator ride to the 15th floor was quiet, save for the faint murmur of instrumental music playing overhead. When the doors opened, Danny was greeted by a sprawling office space with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. Employees bustled about, their movements efficient and purposeful. Marcus Green's office was located near the corner, a glass enclosure that exuded authority. Danny approached with measured steps, knocking lightly on the open door. "Come in," Marcus said without looking up, his eyes fixed on the computer screen. Danny stepped inside, extending her hand. "Good morning, Mr. Green. I'm Danielle Lawson, your new marketing assistant." Marcus finally looked up, his sharp gray eyes scanning her briefly before shaking her hand. His grip was firm, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Marketing assistant, right? Let's get a few things straight. I'm not here to babysit or hold your hand. If you're here, you're expected to pull your weight. I have no tolerance for slackers or excuses. Understand?" Danny nodded, her smile unwavering. "Understood, sir. I'm here to learn and contribute." "Good. Your desk is the last cubicle by the window. Stay out of the way until you're called on." With that, Marcus dismissed her with a curt nod, already turning his attention back to his computer. Danny's stomach tightened, but she refused to let his brisk demeanor deter her. Her workspace was a modest cubicle tucked away in a corner of the open office. While it wasn't the most inviting setup, Danny saw it as a blank canvas, a space where she could prove her worth. She unpacked her things methodically, arranging her desk with an air of quiet determination. The challenges begin. The first few weeks were an uphill battle. While Danny worked tirelessly, soaking up every piece of information she could, it became clear that Marcus had no intention of making her journey easy. He was curt, often dismissive, and showed little interest in her contributions. During brainstorming sessions, Danny's ideas were often ignored or subtly ridiculed. When she suggested a fresh angle for a social media campaign targeting younger audiences, Marcus waved it off. "Nice thought," he said, smirking. "But let's leave the real strategies to those with more experience." Danny bit back her frustration, refusing to let his words discourage her. She stayed late most evenings, poring over market trends, refining her proposals, and working on creative pitches. She believed that eventually, her work would speak for itself. One morning, Marcus approached her desk with a folder and a condescending smile. "Coffee run," he said, dropping a $10 bill onto her desk. "Double espresso, no foam. Don't take all day." Danny clenched her jaw but nodded, taking the money and heading to the coffee shop downstairs. As she waited in line, her mind raced with strategies to handle the situation. She didn't want to escalate things, but she also knew she couldn't let Marcus undermine her at every turn. Returning with his coffee, she placed it on his desk without a word. He glanced at her, his smirk growing wider. "Took you long enough," he muttered, sipping the drink. Danny forced a polite smile. "I'll make sure to run next time," she replied lightly, her tone laced with subtle sarcasm. Finding allies. Not everyone in the department was as dismissive as Marcus. Danny soon discovered a few colleagues who appreciated her dedication and talent. Among them was Elena, a senior marketing strategist with a sharp mind and a kind heart. Elena noticed Danny's late nights and thorough research, often offering encouragement and advice. "You've got great instincts," Elena told her one evening. "Don't let Marcus get to you. He's tough, but even he can't ignore results forever." Danny appreciated the support but knew she couldn't rely on others to fight her battles. If she was going to earn respect, she had to do it on her own terms. One opportunity came during a high-stakes pitch for a new client, a sustainable energy company looking for a fresh marketing campaign. Danny spent the weekend crafting a detailed presentation, complete with data-driven insights and creative strategies. When the team gathered for the pitch meeting, Marcus opened the floor for suggestions. Danny raised her hand, her heart pounding. "I believe we should focus on the rising interest in green technology," she began confidently. Positioning the client as a leader in sustainability could resonate strongly with eco-conscious consumers. Marcus's expression hardened. "Sustainability? That's a risky angle," he said dismissively. Turning to the rest of the team, he added, "Anyone else have ideas?" To Danny's surprise, Elena spoke up. "Actually, I think Danielle's idea has merit. The data supports the growing demand for sustainable solutions." Marcus hesitated, his smirk fading. "Fine," he said grudgingly. "We'll explore it." A growing resolve. Though Marcus continued to claim credit for many of Danny's ideas, her work was beginning to gain recognition among her peers. She could feel a shift, a subtle but significant change in how she was perceived. Still, Danny knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Marcus's attitude remained a constant challenge, his comments often laced with thinly veiled bias. "You know," he said one afternoon, "you've got potential, but you're a little rough around the edges. Most people in your position don't have the polish to succeed in this industry." Danny paused, meeting his gaze. "Most people in my position?" Marcus gave a tight-lipped smile. "Let's not make this about anything it's not." Danny understood his insinuation perfectly. But instead of reacting, she simply nodded and returned to her work. She had no intention of letting him see her falter. As the days turned into weeks, Danny's determination only grew stronger. She knew she was fighting an uphill battle, but she also knew she had something Marcus didn't, the ability to rise above the pettiness and prove her worth through sheer resilience and talent. This was only the beginning. The spark of recognition. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Apex Dynamics' marketing floor, casting a golden glow over the rows of cubicles and glass-paneled offices. Danny Lawson, seated at her desk, leaned forward with her focus locked on her screen. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she fine-tuned the presentation she had been working on all week, a proposal for a client pitch that could define the department's success for the quarter. She glanced at the clock. The team meeting to finalize the proposal was scheduled in 30 minutes, giving her just enough time to polish the final slide. She clicked through her work one last time, ensuring that the data, visuals, and narrative aligned seamlessly. The campaign concept, empowering a greener future, was bold, targeting both the growing demand for eco-conscious solutions and the client's desire to appear as a forward-thinking leader in their industry. It was an idea she was proud of, one she knew had potential. Dani saved the file, exhaled deeply, and straightened her posture. Today was critical, not just for the project but for her personal journey. She had spent weeks trying to navigate Marcus Green's dismissiveness, constantly working harder to prove her value while he continued to belittle her contributions or outright steal her ideas. But today, something in her gut told her that things were about to change. The meeting begins. The conference room buzzed with the energy of a team preparing for a big pitch. A mix of excitement and tension filled the air as team members shuffled papers, connected laptops, and exchanged ideas. Marcus, as always, sat at the head of the table, his presence commanding but standoffish. Dani entered quietly, laptop in hand, and took her usual seat at the far end of the table. "All right," Marcus began, tapping his pen against the table to get everyone's attention. "We've got one chance to impress this client, and I don't need to tell you how important this account is. Jared, Elena, let's hear what you've got first." As Jared and Elena presented their sections of the pitch, Dani couldn't help but notice how Marcus's eyes kept darting to her, as if daring her to speak out of turn. She waited patiently, knowing her time would come. When Marcus finally turned to her, his tone was clipped. "Lawson, you've been working on something, haven't you? Let's hear it." Dani stood, connected her laptop to the projector, and began presenting her ideas. She spoke confidently, outlining the campaign's core message and supporting it with data-driven insights and visually engaging mock-ups. Her voice was steady, and her passion for the project shone through. As she wrapped up, the room was silent for a moment. Then Elena spoke up. "That's excellent work, Dani. The concept is not only innovative but also aligns perfectly with the client's vision." A few other team members nodded in agreement, murmuring their approval. Dani felt a flicker of pride but kept her expression composed. Marcus, however, remained silent, his expression unreadable. Finally, he leaned back in his chair and folded his arms. "It's a decent start," he said, his tone begrudging. "But I think it needs refining. I'll work on it myself before we present it to the client." Dani's stomach churned. She had expected this. Marcus's refusal to acknowledge her fully was nothing new. But before she could respond, Elena spoke again. "With all due respect, Marcus, I think Dani's work is already client-ready. Maybe we should give her the chance to present it as is." The room went still. Marcus's face tightened, and his jaw clenched. "Noted, Elena," he said curtly. "But as the manager, I'll make the final call." Meeting adjourned. A private confrontation. As the team dispersed, Dani lingered behind, gathering her things slowly. She wasn't sure if it was frustration or determination driving her, but she decided to approach Marcus. "Mr. Green, can I have a word?" she asked, her voice steady but firm. Marcus looked up from his notes, clearly annoyed. "Make it quick. I just wanted to say that I appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the pitch," Dani began diplomatically. "But I feel my work deserves to be presented as it is. I've put in a lot of time to ensure it meets the client's needs." Marcus chuckled humorlessly, leaning back in his chair. "Listen, Lawson, you're new here. You might think your work is groundbreaking, but this is a high-stakes game. I've been doing this for years, and I know what the clients want." "With all due respect, sir," Dani replied, her tone sharpening, "the data supports my approach, and the team seems to agree. Isn't it worth giving it a chance?" Marcus's eyes narrowed, his irritation evident. "Let me make one thing clear, I'm in charge. If you want to succeed here, you need to learn your place." Dani's chest tightened, but she refused to look away. I understand, she said finally, keeping her voice calm. Thank you for your time. She walked out of the room with her head held high, even as frustration burned in her chest. This wasn't over. An unexpected advocate. Later that afternoon, Danny was surprised to receive an email from Elena, asking her to meet in the break room. When she arrived, Elena was waiting with 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need a pick-me-up, Elena said with a warm smile, handing Danny a cup. Thanks, Danny replied, taking a sip. I'm guessing this isn't just about coffee. Elena chuckled. You're sharp. Look, I've been watching how Marcus treats you, and I think it's unfair. Your work is some of the best I've seen from someone at your level. You shouldn't let him push you around. I appreciate that, Danny said sincerely. But what can I do? He's my boss. Elena leaned in slightly. Marcus has power, but he's not invincible. If you keep producing work like you did today, people higher up will notice. Don't give him the satisfaction of seeing you back down. Danny nodded, a spark of determination reigniting within her. You're right. I'll keep pushing. A surprising twist. The following morning, Danny arrived early, ready to tackle the day. She was deep in her work when she noticed a tall man in a tailored suit walking through the office, accompanied by Marcus. Her heart skipped a beat. It was Ethan Lawson, her father and the CEO of Apex Dynamics. Ethan was conducting one of his unannounced visits, something he often did to get a genuine sense of the workplace culture. Danny froze for a moment, unsure how to react, but quickly focused on her computer, hoping he wouldn't notice her. As they walked past her desk, Marcus gestured dismissively in her direction. This is one of our new assistants, Lawson. She's still finding her footing. Danny's father glanced at her briefly, his expression giving nothing away. I see, he said evenly before moving on. The encounter was brief, but it left Danny feeling unsettled. She hadn't wanted her father to intervene, but something about Marcus's dismissive tone made her blood boil. Little did she know, this moment would set the stage for an even bigger confrontation. The unraveling. The air in the office felt charged the next morning, as if something unseen had shifted overnight. Danny arrived early, as was her routine, with her focus set firmly on finishing the revisions Marcus had tasked her with, busywork designed to diminish her value. She placed her coffee on her desk, took a steadying breath, and opened her laptop. The glow of the screen illuminated her determined face. Today, she resolved, would be different. A rumor spreads. Danny had barely settled into her workflow when hushed murmurs began circulating around the office. Colleagues leaned toward each other in whispered conversations, their glances darting toward the executive floor. She caught snippets of phrases, unexpected meeting, CEO called in, and Marcus doesn't look happy. Her heart quickened. By mid-morning, the tension in the air was palpable. Marcus had been called into the CEO's office for an impromptu meeting, and his absence left the team in an unusual state of quiet productivity. Danny kept her head down, trying to focus on her work, but her mind raced with questions. Why had her father called Marcus in? Was it about her? Elena stopped by her desk, breaking Danny's thoughts. You heard what's happening. Just bits and pieces, Danny admitted, her voice low. Word is, the CEO, your CEO, is looking into how the marketing department's been run. Rumor has it some complaints reached his ears. Elena raised an eyebrow, her tone curious. Danny's stomach flipped. She shook her head slightly, feigning indifference. I wouldn't know anything about that. Elena smiled knowingly but didn't press further. Well, whatever it is, Marcus has been up there for nearly an hour. Can't say I feel too bad for him. Marcus's return. When Marcus returned to the marketing floor, his face was a storm cloud. His usually confident stride was slower, his posture more rigid. Without a word, he walked straight to his office and shut the door, leaving a trail of curiosity in his wake. Danny observed him from her desk, her own feelings a mix of concern and vindication. She had wanted to confront Marcus about his behavior but never imagined it might come to this. Later that afternoon, Marcus called an emergency team meeting. The group gathered in the conference room, the air thick with unease. Danny took her seat at the far end of the table, her notepad ready but her nerves on edge. Marcus stood at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. Effective immediately, he began, his voice tight, our approach to teamwork and project management will be more collaborative. There have been concerns, misunderstandings, let's call them, about how ideas are presented and credited. Moving forward, every contribution will be acknowledged, and no one's work will go unnoticed. The room was silent, everyone too stunned to speak. Marcus's tone was stiff, almost forced, and his words felt less like a genuine promise and more like a thinly veiled reprimand from higher powers. Danny couldn't suppress the faint smile tugging at her lips. It was subtle, but she could see the cracks forming in Marcus's facade. A new opportunity. That evening, as Danny prepared to leave, her email pinged with a new message. The subject line read, Leadership Opportunity, Presentation Tomorrow. She opened it quickly, her heart racing. The email was from Ethan Lawson's assistant, requesting that Danny present her sustainability pitch directly to the client the next morning. It was an unprecedented opportunity, bypassing Marcus entirely. The email's tone was formal but clear, her work had been noticed. Danny leaned back in her chair, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. This was the chance she had been waiting for. But it also meant stepping out of the shadow she had worked so hard to maintain. The big reveal. The following morning, Danny arrived at the office earlier than usual, armed with her polished presentation and a renewed sense of purpose. She had spent the night refining every slide, anticipating every question, and preparing for every possible challenge. As the team gathered in the boardroom, Marcus's presence loomed over her like a dark cloud. He sat near the head of the table, his jaw tight, his eyes avoiding hers. Ethan Lawson entered the room with his characteristic authority, his tailored suit and confident stride commanding attention. He greeted the room with a warm but professional smile before taking his seat at the head of the table. Thank you all for being here, Ethan began. Today's meeting is critical for the direction of this campaign. Danny Lawson will be leading the presentation. Her innovative ideas have brought fresh energy to our strategy, and I believe they deserve the client's full consideration. A ripple of surprise swept through the room, and all eyes turned to Danny. She stood, her knees slightly trembling but her resolve firm. Thank you, Mr. Lawson, she said, her voice steady. Good morning, everyone. The presentation went smoothly. Danny's passion and preparation shone through as she articulated her vision with clarity and confidence. The client representatives nodded along, visibly impressed, and by the end of the meeting, they were fully on board with her proposal. As the room emptied, Ethan stayed behind, motioning for Danny to join him. I'm proud of you, he said quietly, his tone warm. Thank you, Danny replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus has been handled, Ethan added. But this is your victory. You earned it. Danny nodded, her chest swelling with a mix of pride and relief. The ripple effect. In the weeks that followed, Danny's role on the team shifted dramatically. Colleagues who had once dismissed her now sought her input, and her confidence grew with each new success. Marcus's behavior improved, though it was clear his pride had taken a significant hit. One afternoon, Elena stopped by Danny's desk, a broad smile on her face. Looks like you're finally getting the recognition you deserve. Danny smiled back, her gaze steady. It's about time. Though the journey had been tough, Danny knew she had proven something not just to the team, but to herself. Her worth wasn't tied to anyone else's approval. She had carved her own path, and no one could take that away. The quiet revolution. The morning after her triumphant presentation felt different. The office buzzed with a new energy, the kind that follows a significant win. Danny walked in with her head held high, noticing how her colleagues greeted her with smiles and nods of acknowledgement. It wasn't just polite recognition anymore, it was respect. She had earned her place, and the shift in dynamics was palpable. However, she knew this newfound respect wouldn't erase months of microaggressions and systemic bias overnight. Progress rarely came all at once, but Danny was prepared to keep fighting for her space. She wasn't just working for herself now, she was setting a precedent for anyone who might come after her. A surprising gesture. Mid-morning, Marcus called Danny into his office. She hesitated briefly at the door, unsure of what to expect. The last time she had been summoned to his office, it had been for a reprimand disguised as constructive criticism. "Close the door," Marcus said, his voice unusually soft. Danny complied, sitting across from him with her notepad in hand. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "I wanted to acknowledge your work on the sustainability campaign. The clients were impressed, and it's clear your ideas carried the day." Danny blinked, surprised. Was this an apology? It was the closest thing she'd ever received from him. "Thank you," she said cautiously. He cleared his throat. "I also recognize that I may have been overly critical in the past. It wasn't personal, but I understand how it might have come across that way." Might have? Danny thought, biting back a retort. Instead, she chose to keep the conversation professional. "I appreciate the acknowledgement," she said simply. Marcus nodded, though his discomfort was evident. "Good. Let's move forward." As Danny left his office, she couldn't help but feel a mix of satisfaction and skepticism. She wasn't naive enough to think Marcus had undergone a complete transformation, but his attempt at a truce was a step in the right direction. Building a network. Danny's win with the sustainability campaign had caught the attention of other departments, and soon she was fielding invitations to collaborate on various projects. One of these invitations came from Rachel Meyer, the head of public relations. Rachel was everything Marcus wasn't: warm, inclusive, and genuinely interested in fostering talent. She approached Danny in the break room one afternoon, her smile bright and her energy infectious. "I've been hearing great things about your work," Rachel said. "I'd love for you to join our brainstorming session for the upcoming charity gala. Fresh perspectives are always welcome." Danny smiled, genuinely touched. "I'd be honored. Thank you for thinking of me." Working with Rachel's team was a revelation. The atmosphere was collaborative, and Danny felt her confidence grow with each contribution she made. For the first time, she experienced what it meant to be part of a team that valued her input without reservations. The mentor. One afternoon, Ethan Lawson invited Danny to lunch. It wasn't uncommon for him to meet with employees, but this felt more personal. They sat in a quiet corner of a nearby cafe, the conversation starting with pleasantries before shifting to more serious topics. "I've been watching your progress," Ethan said, his tone proud but measured. "You've handled yourself with grace under pressure, and your work speaks for itself." "Thank you," Danny replied, her voice tinged with gratitude. Ethan leaned forward, his gaze intent. "But I also know this industry can be unforgiving, especially for someone in your position. If you ever feel like you're facing challenges you can't handle alone, my door is always open." Danny felt a lump rise in her throat. She hadn't expected such direct support from him, but it meant the world to know he had her back. "I appreciate that," she said softly. "But I want to succeed on my own terms. That's important to me." "And you will," Ethan assured her. "But don't forget that even the strongest people need allies." The whispered truth. As Danny's reputation grew, so did the curiosity surrounding her background. Whispers began circulating, colleagues speculated about her connection to the Lawson family, her sudden rise in prominence, and the CEO's visible interest in her career. Elena approached Danny one afternoon, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "There's been talk," she said hesitantly. People are wondering if you're connected to Mr. Lawson. Danny's heart skipped a beat. She had always known this moment would come, but she wasn't sure she was ready for it. What do you think? Danny asked, her voice calm but her gaze steady. Elena hesitated. Honestly? I think it doesn't matter. You've proven yourself, and anyone who doubts that is just looking for excuses. Danny smiled, relief washing over her. Thanks, Elena. That means a lot. Still, the rumors persisted, and Danny knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came out. She decided to focus on her work, trusting that her actions would speak louder than speculation. A defining moment. The tipping point came during a quarterly town hall meeting. Ethan Lawson stood before the entire company, delivering his usual updates with the charisma and authority that had made him such a respected leader. Toward the end of the meeting, he paused, his expression serious. Before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to highlight an employee who has exemplified the values of this company: innovation, perseverance, and integrity. The room fell silent, and Danny felt her pulse quicken. Danny Lawson has not only delivered outstanding results on the sustainability campaign but has also demonstrated the kind of leadership that inspires those around her. It's clear she has a bright future ahead of her. The applause that followed was thunderous, but Danny's focus was on the subtle weight of Ethan's words. By acknowledging her publicly, he had also subtly acknowledged their connection. As the crowd dispersed, Marcus approached her, his expression unreadable. So, he said, his tone almost amused. You're the CEO's daughter. Danny met his gaze evenly. Does it change anything? Marcus hesitated, then shook his head. No. You've earned your place here, with or without the title. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was enough. The aftermath. Danny's revelation didn't change her day-to-day life as much as she had feared. The respect she had earned through her work carried more weight than her family name, and she continued to rise through the ranks with quiet determination. In the weeks that followed, she made it a point to mentor younger employees, ensuring they had the support she had often lacked. She also worked closely with Rachel Meyer on initiatives to promote diversity and inclusion within the company, determined to leave a lasting impact. Danny had proven herself in the face of adversity, but she knew her journey was far from over. Her story was just beginning, and she was ready to write the next chapter on her own terms. The Reckoning. The revelation of Danny Lawson's identity rippled through the office like an unexpected earthquake. Some reacted with admiration, while others, like Marcus, wrestled with a mixture of surprise and embarrassment. But for Danny, the unveiling of her lineage marked the beginning of a new chapter, one where the weight of expectations and her own ambitions intertwined more than ever before. The silent shift. In the weeks following the town hall, Danny noticed a subtle change in how her colleagues interacted with her. Where once she'd been overlooked in meetings, her suggestions now garnered immediate attention. People who had barely acknowledged her existence before suddenly became overly friendly, their greetings warm, their conversations peppered with unnecessary praise. Your ideas are always so insightful, Danny, said Claire, one of the marketing analysts, during a team meeting. Danny offered a polite nod but said nothing. She recognized the difference between genuine respect and opportunistic flattery, and it frustrated her that some colleagues now seemed more interested in her family connections than her work. Still, she refused to let the shift distract her. She focused on the tasks at hand, pouring her energy into a new campaign for an upcoming client, a fast-growing tech company with a bold vision for sustainable innovation. Marcus faces the truth. Meanwhile, Marcus Harper found himself grappling with his own internal reckoning. The revelation that Danny was the CEO's daughter forced him to confront his actions, or lack thereof. It wasn't just that he'd treated her unfairly, it was the fact that she had proven herself time and time again, and he had chosen to ignore it. One afternoon, as Danny was reviewing the details of a proposal in the conference room, Marcus knocked lightly on the open door. She glanced up, surprised to see him standing there with a hesitant expression. Got a minute? He asked, stepping inside without waiting for a response. Sure, Danny said, her tone neutral. Marcus closed the door and sat down across from her, his hands clasped tightly on the table. I owe you an apology, he began, his voice uncharacteristically soft. Danny raised an eyebrow, unsure where this was going. I've been unfair, he admitted. When you first joined, I didn't take you seriously. I dismissed your ideas, made assumptions, wrong ones, and treated you in ways I wouldn't want to be treated. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. For a moment, she didn't know how to respond. I appreciate the apology, she said finally. But it wasn't just about me being new, was it? Marcus looked away, his expression pained. No, it wasn't, he admitted. I let my own biases cloud my judgment. And for that, I'm truly sorry. Danny studied him carefully, searching for any signs of insincerity. When she found none, she nodded. Apology accepted. But actions speak louder than words, Marcus. If you really mean it, show it in how you treat others going forward. He nodded solemnly. You have my word. A bold proposal. As Danny continued to work on the tech company's campaign, she found herself increasingly drawn to the idea of incorporating bold, unconventional storytelling into the strategy. She wanted the campaign to do more than just sell a product, she wanted it to inspire. One evening, as the office emptied out, Danny stayed late, poring over ideas and refining her presentation. By the time she finished, the clock read 10:15 p.m., and the cleaning crew was just beginning their rounds. Exhausted but satisfied, she saved her work and headed home. The following morning, she presented her proposal to the team. Unlike previous meetings, where her ideas had been dismissed or appropriated, this time she commanded the room with confidence. This campaign isn't just about showcasing a product, Danny said, her voice steady. It's about connecting with people on a deeper level, showing them how innovation and sustainability can go hand in hand to create a better future. Her presentation was met with enthusiastic applause, and even Marcus couldn't hide his admiration. Brilliant work, Danny, he said after the meeting. I think we've got a winner here. Strength in unity. With the campaign moving forward, Danny began assembling a diverse team to execute her vision. She reached out to colleagues from various departments, bringing together a mix of skills and perspectives. Among them were Elena, Rachel, and Jared, each eager to contribute to the project. The collaboration was a breath of fresh air. The team worked seamlessly, bouncing ideas off one another and pushing the boundaries of creativity. Danny's leadership style, empathetic yet decisive, earned her the respect and loyalty of her team. We're building something special here, Rachel said during a late-night brainstorming session. Danny smiled, her heart swelling with pride. We are. And it's only the beginning. The CEO steps in. As the campaign neared completion, Ethan Lawson called Danny into his office for a one-on-one meeting. She entered with a mix of excitement and nerves, eager to hear his feedback. I've been following your progress on this project, Ethan said, gesturing for her to sit. And I have to say, you've exceeded my expectations. Thank you, Danny replied, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. Ethan leaned forward, his expression serious. But there's something else I want to discuss. You've proven yourself capable of leading, Danny, and it's time we start preparing you for bigger responsibilities. Her eyes widened in surprise. Bigger responsibilities? He nodded. I want you to take on a more prominent role within the company. You have the vision, the drive, and the resilience to make a real impact. And I think you're ready for the challenge. Danny felt a surge of emotion, pride, excitement, and a touch of apprehension. She had worked tirelessly to prove herself, and now she was being given the opportunity to step into a leadership role. I'm ready, she said, her voice firm. Ethan smiled. I know you are. A new chapter. With her promotion officially announced, Danny's role within the company expanded. She was no longer just a marketing assistant, she was now a key player in shaping the company's future. The journey hadn't been easy, but Danny wouldn't have had it any other way. Each challenge, each setback, had only made her stronger. And now, as she looked out over the bustling city from her new corner office, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Her story was far from over, but she was ready for whatever came next. Legacy in the making. The view from Danny Lawson's corner office was breathtaking. It was the same city she had admired through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her previous cubicle, but now, it seemed different, more vibrant, more alive. The journey to this point had been far from smooth, but every hurdle had shaped her into the leader she was becoming. Danny turned away from the window to face her desk, where a neat stack of reports awaited her review. But today wasn't just about tackling work, it was also about paving a new path forward, for herself, for her team, and for the company. Transforming leadership. Danny's first move in her new role was to reshape the company's culture. She knew firsthand how it felt to be overlooked and underestimated, and she was determined to ensure no one else would endure that experience. During her first team-wide meeting as a leader, Danny addressed the employees with sincerity. Dalton Industries is built on innovation and integrity, she began, her voice steady. But innovation doesn't just happen in our campaigns, it starts here, in our workplace. It's time we embrace collaboration, diversity, and respect in everything we do. The room erupted in applause. Even those who had been skeptical of her initial rise to prominence couldn't deny the authenticity in her words. Among those clapping was Marcus Harper. While his guilt for his past actions lingered, he had begun to embrace the opportunity for growth. Under Danny's guidance, he started mentoring junior employees, determined to foster the kind of support he had once failed to provide. The campaign launch. Meanwhile, Danny's groundbreaking campaign for the tech company was about to debut. The team had poured their hearts into crafting a narrative that blended creativity with a powerful message of sustainability. It was more than an advertisement, it was a call to action. On launch day, the anticipation was palpable. Danny and her team gathered in the conference room, their eyes glued to the screen as the campaign went live. The ad featured a stirring story about a young innovator transforming discarded materials into life-changing technology, ending with a simple yet profound tagline, "The future isn't given, it's made." As the campaign spread across social media and news outlets, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Industry leaders praised its originality, and consumers were inspired by its message. Within days, the campaign became a case study in how marketing could drive not only sales but also social impact. Danny's team celebrated their success with a well-deserved dinner, where laughter and camaraderie filled the air. For Danny, seeing her team thrive was the most rewarding part of her journey. A surprise visitor. A week after the campaign's launch, Danny received an unexpected visitor. Her father, Ethan Lawson, arrived at her office unannounced, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you could use a break," he said, handing her a cup as he settled into the chair across from her desk. Danny smiled, touched by the gesture. "Thanks, Dad. What's the occasion?" Ethan took a sip of his coffee before speaking. "I've been thinking a lot about your journey here. Watching you grow into this role has been one of the proudest moments of my life." "Thank you," Danny said, her voice soft. "But," Ethan continued, "I also realize I haven't given you enough credit for how you've handled yourself, especially in the face of adversity. You've proven that leadership isn't about titles or connections, it's about resilience, vision, and heart." Danny felt a lump form in her throat. Her father's words were more than just praise, they were an acknowledgement of the path she had chosen and the battles she had fought to earn her place. "I wanted to make you proud," she admitted. "You've done far more than that," Ethan replied. "You've inspired me, and everyone else in this company, to be better." The ripple effect. With her success, Danny became a mentor to many within Dalton Industries. She initiated a mentorship program aimed at nurturing talent from diverse backgrounds, ensuring that everyone had access to opportunities for growth. One of her mentors was Claire, a young analyst with big ideas but little confidence. Under Danny's guidance, Claire began to flourish, eventually leading a campaign that earned accolades from industry experts. "It's because of you that I believed in myself," Claire told Danny during a team celebration. Danny shook her head with a warm smile. "No, Claire. You've always had it in you. I just helped you see it." Closing the loop with Marcus. One day, Danny called Marcus into her office. Over the past months, he had become one of her staunchest supporters, and she felt it was time to address the lingering tension between them. "Marcus," she began, "I want to thank you for the changes you've made. It's not easy to reflect on past mistakes and make amends, but you've done just that." He nodded, his expression earnest. "I owe you that, and more. You've taught me what real leadership looks like." Danny leaned back in her chair, a thoughtful look on her face. "The thing about leadership," she said, "is that it's not about being perfect. It's about learning, growing, and lifting others as you climb. You've shown that you're capable of all three." The conversation ended on a note of mutual respect, marking a new chapter in their professional relationship. A vision for the future. As Danny looked ahead, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just building a career, she was building a legacy. Her journey had taught her the value of perseverance, humility, and the power of believing in oneself. One evening, as the office lights dimmed and the city skyline glittered outside her window, Danny reflected on how far she had come. She thought about the challenges she had faced, the lessons she had learned, and the people who had supported her along the way. Her story was no longer just her own, it was a story of transformation, resilience, and the belief that anyone, no matter their background, could rise to greatness. And as she closed her laptop and prepared to leave for the night, Danny felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She wasn't just the CEO's daughter anymore. She was a leader in her own right, and her journey was just beginning.